Hello, this is Bill Meridian speaking to you from Vienna, Austria. It is January 10th, 2019. This is the third in a series of mundane analyses brought to you by Cycles Research Mundane Global Scan. And this one is about impeachment, since that is a very popular topic at the moment. Will they impeach the president? Well, the way I carried out this analysis was by looking at the only three American presidents who have ever been impeached. And I can start with the solar eclipse on August 11, 2018 at 18 Leo. This eclipse is at the same degree of the eclipse that occurred on the same date in August of 1999, the 19-year-long Metonic cycle. That brings back themes from that time. And at that time, 1999, the big story was the impeachment of President Bill Clinton, who was subsequently acquitted. Three presidents in U.S. history have been impeached: Andrew Johnson, Richard Nixon, and Bill Clinton. What does astrology have to tell us about history repeating itself? Well, here is the horoscope of Andrew Johnson, December 29th, 1808, 0:34 a.m., Raleigh, North Carolina. You'll find this birth time in the Book of U.S. Presidents, which is available from the AFA, and in the book by my old friend from the UK, Ron Howland, American Histrology. Both books are recommended in my book on mundane astrology called Mastering Political Prediction. So that is Johnson's chart. Let's look at the hits to his chart. First of all, the impeachment ran from March to May of 1868. And it was the culmination of a lengthy political battle between Johnson and the Republican majority in Congress over how best to deal with the defeated southern states following the conclusion of the American War between the states. So to begin, the February 23 solar eclipse at 4 Pisces 17 squared Johnson's Neptune-Hades conjunction at 5 Sagittarius and his progressed ascendant Saturn conjunction at 3 Sag. Yes, his progressed ascendant was conjunct his progressed Saturn at 3, Neptune Hades natally, which could have to do with scandals, at 5, and the eclipse squared it from 4 Pisces. Now the February 8th, 1868 lunar eclipse fell at, there's the degree again, 18 Leo 57. And we'll see this again. This is the same degree that was eclipsed in 2018 and in 1999. Isn't that remarkable? Something about that degree and American impeachment. The March 14 retrograde station of Saturn was only 7 minutes from Johnson's natal Neptune, and as we all know, this pair is well known for its connection to scandals. If that weren't enough, the direct station of Uranus opposed his Sun and squared his Mars. This is the sign of rebellion against his power. And note that Uranus was square Mars, as we will see in Bill Clinton's case. In his progress chart, Johnson had Saturn and the ascendant conjunct, and transiting Saturn was running over that progressed ascendant, progressed Saturn conjunction for most of the year. Now, you may be wondering what saved him. Jupiter was conjunct Pluto and trined his Neptune and Jupiter in his progress chart. And Jupiter was conjunct progressed Jupiter, which likely turned the tide. Charles Jane taught that Jupiter aspects can act as a preservative when danger arises, but the big factor was the February solar eclipse at 4 Pisces, conjunct his progressed Sun at 7 Pisces, and as we know from my book, Predictive Power of Eclipse Paths, eclipse conjunct the Sun or the progressed Sun strengthens one's will to live, one's physical strength, and it likely swung the energy in his favor. According to historians, his enemies had a weak case to begin with, but he certainly had a very afflicted chart, with the saving graces of Jupiter likely pulling him back from the brink. Let's move on to Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon, January 9th, 1913, 9:35 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Whittier, California, a well-known chart. And right off the bat, we notice Hades on his 7th house cusp. And what would the Uranian system of astrology tell us? But keep it clean when it comes to your contacts. Don't hang out with Watergate plumbers. So that's what he's known for. And also note the Mars-Pluto opposition, Mars in the 4th at 29 Sagittarius, opposite Pluto at 28 Gemini, up in the 10th. Now, Nixon did not stay in office long enough to be impeached. The process did begin, however, on February 6, 1974. His chart was afflicted by Saturn on his Pluto all year opposing his Mars, so Saturn was activating his Mars-Pluto opposition. Uranus squared Neptune, the ruler of his 7th, likely symbolic of his link to the Watergate plumbers. The June 1974 eclipse opposed his midheaven. Now, if that weren't enough, the most telling blow was that of the June 1974 solar eclipse conjunct his Pluto and opposite his Mars. So not only did he have Saturn transiting over Pluto, but the solar eclipse fell on his Pluto. Now this was greatly intensified by Pluto turning direct by secondary progression on August 21. He resigned on August 9th. Stations by progression are very rare, so their occurrence is very powerful. You talk about an afflicted chart. This is it. In addition, Pluto opposed natal Mars and was receiving Saturn transits. The Pluto progression simply intensified this whole crisis. But the knockout blow was the eclipse conjunct Pluto. Once again, mundane astrologists are always advised to screen charts of public figures for eclipses conjunct or opposite Pluto. There's a section on that in my book. Now we're going to jump to Bill Clinton. We all remember him, August 19, 1946, 8:51 a.m. Central Standard Time in Hope, Arkansas. Now his impeachment process began in December 98 and concluded in February of 99. The February solar eclipse opposed his natal sun, and we know that such occurrences knock one down in stature. That's straight out of my book, Predictive Power of Eclipse Paths. He was acquitted, but the revelations were embarrassing. His Hades was activated, and solar arc Saturn was 75 degrees to his sun. 75, 105, and 165 were aspects used by Lord Edward Jandro way back in the 40s. They are 24th harmonic aspects. And it does have something to do with disruption and sudden change, as determined by John Addy and myself 1 week back in 1975 at my home in New Jersey. Now back to Clinton. Uranus squared his progressed Mars. The lunar eclipse of January 31, 1999 was conjunct his Pluto. There's the eclipse to Pluto again. And at the bottom I say readers may recall that I pointed to the August 2017 solar eclipse conjunct James Comey's Pluto as an indication that he would be ousted as FBI director. That appeared in the pages of Dell Horoscope. I learned that through going through many cases like this. These people are plutocrats, and if their Plutos overheat, they tend to blow up. And so I now always screen for eclipses to Pluto, and that is how I was successfully able to pick the firing of James Comey out of all the horoscopes in the database. Now let's switch to the current president, Donald Trump, 6/14/46. Yes, I'm using 9:51 a.m. EDT. The rationale for that is in the previous recording, which you can see under my YouTube channel, which is Mastering Political Prediction. Let's look at the hits to his chart. The president was born on a lunar eclipse, and Jupiter transits over his moon and opposes his sun 3 times in 2019. In March, the progressed sun will be 45 degrees to natal Jupiter on the 8th, and transiting Jupiter will oppose the sun for the first of 3 transits on March 10th. Now, progressed sun, 45 to Jupiter, on a 90-degree dial, that is, progressed sun equals Jupiter, which is very favorable. On March 18th, and this is the strongest one, progressed Venus will be parallel his progressed Jupiter. Uranus opposes Jupiter 3 times this year, The Uranus-Apollon opposition in space will be trine and sextile his progressed sun all year. Apollon, in case you do not know the Hamburg School of Astrology, is the planet of free trade, and the soft aspects are likely to dissipate fears over trade wars. Let me add that I point out in my book, Planetary Economic Forecasting, that all proponents of the Austrian School of Free Trade, which began in 1871 with the great Karl Menger, leading up to the master publication of Ludwig von Mises' work in 1912, all of those guys are Sun, Apollon, Jupiter, and all supporters, like myself, all have that aspect with that planetary picture. Back to the Trump horoscope. On March 3rd, Saturn does oppose his progressed MC, one of the few hard aspects in the month, and as we know now, probably linked to the government shutdown. The eclipse that just occurred in early January 2019 was on the Saturn-Pluto midpoint, and what does Saturn-Pluto do but cut expenses? It has shut part of the federal government. So, that Saturn opposing his progressed midheaven likely symbolizes some opposition to one of his moves. Not all parties are going to be happy with changes. But with all of the Jupiter energy, there is a danger of overconfidence, overspending, and inflated expectations. Thus, the Saturn influence will likely be a stabilizing one, the one that grounds the situation or brings him back closer to Earth. Conclusion. Any attempt to impeach him likely crested in the first quarter of 2018. His chart is not nearly as afflicted as those of the three presidents that were facing impeachment. It appears highly unlikely that President Trump will exit his office on this avenue. Now, what principles from my book, what basic mundane principles were used? Well, maintain a large database. If you're looking for hits to Pluto and you don't have James Comey in the database, he doesn't show up, and you miss that one. Number two, look at past activations. Well, I've done that. We've just looked at activations of prior presidents to see if there's any possibility of the current president being impeached. Number three, I made a special section in the book to always note eclipses conjunct or opposite Pluto, because these people are Plutocrats. They live and die by Pluto, most frequently dying when eclipses are conjunct or opposite their Pluto. Now we project this, number four, into the future in light of the current situation. We've already done that. So those are four of the principles from the book, and here's a working example of how to put them into practice. These are the first two videos in this series. The first one was about China's diplomatic relations with the USA. The second about Trump's birth time. That is a copy of the book, Mastering Geopolitical Prediction, Applied Mundane Astrology, soon to be a major motion picture. And if you wish to buy that book or any of the other books, you go to BillMeridian.com under Publications, and you will see the book along with the Cycles Research Early Warning Service with forecasts for stocks, gold, bonds, and with political forecasts. This is Bill Meridian signing off for now until video number 4. Thank you so much for listening, and Happy New Year to everyone.